Welcome, everyone, to today's information session for Brown University's Masters of Science in Healthcare Leadership. It's a joint program between the School of Professional Studies here at Brown and the School of Public Health. Today's session is going to be an overview of the MHL program, a little bit about the application process, and what many of you are probably really interested in is the financial tips in regard to how to finance your education here at Brown. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Francesca Savella. She's the Assistant Director of Financial Aid here at Brown, focusing on graduate students. And I'm Sandi Ferretti. I'm the Program Director for the Healthcare Leadership Program. So welcome, everyone, and let's get started. So for today's session, we ask that you use the Q&A function on your menu bar in Zoom so that you can enter questions as they come to you during the presentation, and we will address them all at the end. And that's the best way to keep track of your questions and for us to make sure we've captured everything when it's time for questions and answers. So thanks for using that tool. Today's session is going to cover the program structure, some of the value and impact of the program as told to us by students, application requirements, and a few quick tips. And then we're going to switch over to the financing options and wrap up with Q&A. So let's start out talking about the program structure. In a snapshot, this program is a combination of the best of healthcare knowledge, business knowledge and skills, and leadership skills so that we can drive strategic decision makers that can drive value and positive change in healthcare. This is a picture of a recent cohort of our students. You can see that they come from a wide variety of backgrounds. We'll talk more about that later. The curriculum is 3 semesters or terms, as Brown calls them, and you can enter either in the summer term or the fall term, but in either case, these are the courses that are offered during those terms. The program is founded around 4 full credit core courses that I would call them core: healthcare policy, strategic planning, healthcare finance and cost accounting, and a course directed at leadership and workforce development. And that's really about leadership in organizations. Next are our half credit courses that sort of wrap around the rest of the curriculum. We have marketing, health economics, health law, health technology, data and analysis, and our digital health innovation and AI course. The 2 courses that have a white background, those are fully online courses that are happening alongside the courses offered during the fall and spring terms. All the other courses are hybrid, which means that there are some sessions in person during our residential sessions, and the remainder of the semester is then online. You start each term by coming in person for a week-long session with your fellow students and to engage with the faculty, and then the rest of the term is online. Supported across the rest of the program then is our Critical Challenge Project and the Leadership and Professional Development courses. These are, they're a series of 3 courses each, and they're a quarter credit each, making up 3/4 of a credit for the full program. And the Critical Challenge Project is really about applying all of this knowledge that you are acquiring during the program to a real world situation that you are facing or that you want to work on solving. And the Leadership and Professional Development course is really about your development as a leader. So we offer things like a 360 evaluation, leadership coaching. You work on your own leadership development plan in terms of targeting specific areas that you want to work on as an individual. And then there's a variety of skill building work and activities and leadership theory that help support all of those activities. So that is the curriculum in a nutshell. All of that is supported by our world-class faculty who are all pictured here. Typically, I just focus on one. I'm going to focus on a new faculty member, Tyler Ray, is joining us to teach the Digital Health Innovation and AI course. He has taught the course previously and is faculty member in the School of Public Health, but he comes to public health from a professional background and so has a good deal of background in startup ventures and things like that around digital innovations in healthcare and use of data. So one thing I would emphasize about all of our faculty is that they are practitioners as well as academics. So they have what students would refer to as real world experience and are not strictly academic. So let's quickly go over the value and impact of the program. And I could focus on the items on the left-hand side of the column, but really what I think you all want to hear about is what students tell us that they really value about the program. First, they tell us that they really appreciate learning from a wide variety of peers. We try to attract students from across the healthcare delivery system, and that ranges from people in the pharma industry to clinicians to nurses, many other types of clinicians, medical device, government regulation, healthcare attorneys, consultants in healthcare, a wide variety, and bringing all of those folks to the table for you to interact and engage with in small groups in the classroom as well as online. Students tell us that that is something that they really value about the program because you're learning from peers as much as you are learning from your faculty members. The second thing they tell us that they really value is our focus on applied learning from day one, from the beginning. Students come in energized, and by the end of that first week in person, they're just so excited to take back all of the skills and knowledge that they have learned in that first week to go and use it at work. And that's our aim, is to really make sure that you are acquiring the knowledge and skills that you can go back and start using right away. And then lastly, what makes us very unique is our emphasis on leadership development. So throughout the curriculum, while we have those two specific leadership courses, you'll find that all of the courses have a focus on leadership development. And so the thought process around assignments and discussion posts and things like that are really going to be focused on the types of decisions and thinking that leaders have to do around that particular content area. So those are the three themes that students tell us, and I love it when I have alumni sessions like this, and you can ask for videos of those, and sort of unprompted, they highlight these three themes. So it's not just me saying it, this is what we hear from our students. So narrowing down a little bit on the critical challenge project, this is a challenge that you identify that is in need of leadership and a solution. It might be something in your organization. It might be a broader topic. It's completely up to the students. We really want you to select what you're interested in because that makes it that much more valuable for you. It's a practical application of the coursework and leadership skills because we really want you to walk away being able to have tangible results and create impact as you leave the program. And lastly, it's a very collaborative process. I talk about students being the CEO of their project, and you really get to play in the sandbox and practice your leadership skills in trying to solve this challenge, as well as working with a wide variety of peers and professional colleagues. So you're in charge of the project, you're doing it in collaboration with lots of folks, and you have the support and resources of Brown to execute on your vision of your project. So let's quickly touch on the application requirements. We're looking to build, as I mentioned, folks who have some experience in the healthcare industry, folks who want to broaden their knowledge and skills. Folks come, as I mentioned, all those different diverse areas of the healthcare ecosystem. They're looking, the people tend to come with a very focused set of knowledge, and they want to broaden that knowledge and skills in order to help themselves with career growth and to make more impact. They want to engage and expand their network, and very importantly, they need that flexible learning format, this hybrid program where you continue to work full-time while you earn the degree and just come to Brown for those 3 in-person sessions. So the application itself has about 6 pieces, and they're actually pretty simple. There's an application form and fee. Those of you who are attending this session live, the application fee will be waived for you. The application form itself is primarily your demographic information and things like that. Your personal statement, which I'm going to address momentarily, as well as the critical challenge statement. This is a 1-year accelerated program, so we really want to help folks hit the ground running with their ideas and thoughts about what they might want to work on for their critical challenge. 3 letters of recommendation, your resume or CV, and official transcripts. You are able to submit unofficial transcripts at the time of application, because we know that sometimes takes time. But if you are accepted and choose to attend the program, we do require official transcripts prior to your enrollment. We do not require any testing, like the GRE or GMAT. If you are a international student or obtained your education at a non-English speaking undergraduate institution, you will need to provide some TOEFL scores and things like that. So that would be the limited situation where a test would be required. I would recommend, if you're planning to apply, that one of the first things you do is do that application start piece and put in your application who your recommenders are going to be. We do the outreach for your recommenders, so and that we find is generally the holdup in having a complete application. So as soon as you get those things, those recommenders into your application, we can start working on outreach to those recommenders. Helps things move along. So here's some tips on writing a strong personal statement. Be sure to highlight your own professional excellence and achievements. What are the types of things that you have achieved, projects you've led, things that you've worked on, a little bit about your academic background. Importantly, why you want to attend this program. What is special about this program that you are attracted to? Some about your professional goals, and then very importantly from our perspective is how you will contribute to the peer learning environment as a diverse program, hybrid, where you're engaging with a wide variety of peers. We're interested in what your thoughts are about what the type of knowledge and skills that you will bring to that peer learning environment. So those are some quick tips on that. For your capstone project, this is what you will see in the application. This is the question that we ask. You're asked to describe a critical challenge related to your field and interests, drawing from your own experience and your vision for the future. You should address these 4 points: the complexity and challenges of the problem in the current environment, any technical, organizational, and social barriers and constraints, the specific work that you anticipate completing while you're a student at Brown, and deliverables you anticipate for your projects besides a report. So if you think you're going to launch an app or you're going to create a new business, tell us that. Tell us what your interest is in terms of how you might bring your project forward. Now, I will say about the capstone project that we do not expect that in 1 year's time you are going to launch a new product and do all sorts of great things. We want you to go out and do those great things after the program, but the coursework and the skill building that you're doing in the program allows you to create this completed plan so that you can go out and tackle it after the program. So don't be alarmed at feeling like you need to completely accomplish your capstone in the time frame of the program. The application process is you need to submit all the materials, and we can't consider your application complete until we've received all the materials. Eligible candidates are invited for an admissions interview. And then we use a rolling process. So after the interview process and things, those admission decisions happen within 1 to 2 weeks generally. We've always put 6 weeks on here in the event of it's the holidays or people are on vacation, things like that. So, but generally it's pretty quick in terms of receiving your notification of admission. In order to accept your spot in the program, you need to give us a $1,500 non-refundable deposit. That deposit is applied to your tuition bill, so it's funds that go towards your tuition, so you don't need to worry about that as an additional fee. Any scholarships that you might be eligible for at the time of admission will be communicated to you with your admissions letter, so you will have that information right up front. And I know that financing this education is on your mind, so I am going to invite Francesca to join me and tell you about financing your education at Brown.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to pull up our presentation and then we can talk about some financing tips as you consider your admission to the program. So thank you again for having me and allowing me to join you this afternoon. My name is Francesca Savella, and I work as an assistant director in the Office of Financial Aid here at Brown. I specifically work with our graduate student population. Before I dive into information that I'm sure you're waiting on hearing today, just a brief overview of what we can offer here at the Office of Financial Aid with our student population. We work with students to complete their required FAFSA applications. So for students that are inquiring in borrowing federal loan from the Department of Education, it would require the submission of a FAFSA application. So we work with students to move through that process. We also work with students regarding understanding their cost of attendance or their budget that is set for them for a given program that the student enrolls in. And then we also help to determine a student's federal loan eligibility upon receiving the FAFSA application as part of the direct student loan program. So I'm going to talk just a bit about the FAFSA application itself. For any student that is considering loan borrowing as a component to finance their costs for education, prior to being able to move through the federal loan borrowing process, most importantly, the student is required to file a FAFSA application. For those who have received federal loan funding previous, you're very aware of this application, I'm sure. So the FAFSA application is a requirement for any U.S. citizen or permanent resident to file, assuming you are looking or you are interested in borrowing loan towards your costs for education. The FAFSA itself is required in order for a student to be considered for eligibility within the unsubsidized federal direct student loan program or the Graduate Plus loan. The FAFSA application is available online. The 2025-2026 FAFSA application is available for students that may be considering enrollment, let's say as early as the spring semester. I'm happy to also let everyone know that the upcoming academic year, FAFSA, for the 2026-2027 academic year is also available. So regardless of your consideration from when you're looking for admission or to enroll in the program, you do have both respective academic year applications available to you at the FAFSA website. This is important when filing the FAFSA. you will find that you are required to add a school to the application, so that way we can receive it and then determine your loan eligibility. Brown University has two different federal codes. You are in fact a graduate student, so please just be aware that you'll be required to include the graduate federal code, which is available on the screen. You can also very easily search this online and actually on the FAFSA application while you're filing. But again, just be sure that you're choosing the graduate student specifically. So understanding a FAFSA year. So I had just announced that on the FAFSA or website, the FAFSA portal, you now have access to complete the FAFSA application for two different respective academic years. So this slide is meant to sort of help understand what a FAFSA year essentially means. So for summer, the summer term is technically the start or the first term of a new financial aid year. Summer start means that the sole FAFSA for the 25-26 academic year would essentially cover 3 enrollment terms, assuming you started your enrollment in the summer. So to break it down just a bit more, if you are considering filing the 2025-2026 FAFSA application, which is this current academic year we're presently in, it would have covered the previous summer 2025 term that has since been completed, the fall 2025 term, which most enrolled students are presently in, and then it will also cover the spring 2026 term, which is to come in the next few months. For students that are considering enrollment as of the summer of 2026, that would now fall under a new financial aid year, which would then mean you would be considering filing the FAFSA application for the 2026-2027 academic year. There's a lot of different years that I've just thrown at you, and I can appreciate that might sound very confusing. What I will relay back to is if you do have questions based on your enrollment consideration, we are available to explain that and flesh that out a little bit more so it doesn't feel as overwhelming as it may. The other option is filing both FAFSAs because that in no way can hurt. So this next slide continues that conversation on different financial aid years. So this slide is pertinent to students that are starting their enrollment in the fall. So a fall start essentially covers a span of 2 semesters throughout a financial aid year. So for a student that is enrolling in a fall semester in which they would be enrolled right now, the FAFSA for the 2025-2026 year is going to cover 2 terms, your fall and your spring. But for your final term, the summer, which you would be enrolled in to complete your degree requirements, that is now again the start of a new financial aid year. So as you can see on this chart, for what would be your fall and spring enrollment, you'll be covered under the 2025-26 FAFSA application. But for your final term, which would be summer of 2026, you will need to file a new FAFSA for that corresponding 2026-27 academic year. This next slide talks a little bit about merit scholarship opportunities with the School of Professional Studies. So as was previously communicated, decisions about merit scholarships are competitive and they are shared at the time that a student receives their admission decision. After any merit-based scholarship support has been offered, that's when the Office of Financial Aid will then determine a student's eligibility for federal student loans based off of the FAFSA application that would be required to determine that eligibility. In this next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the cost of attendance for the program on the basis of the entirety of your enrollment, which covers 12 months or, as was communicated previously, 3 semesters. So when we're thinking of a cost of attendance, another word that I'll use to describe it is your budget. what is it going to cost me to participate in this program? And within that cost of attendance, there's two very separate categories that we've done our best here to really spell out the differences of. And that is, what are my direct costs versus indirect costs? So a direct cost, as we have on this slide, would include any direct billable charges that the student would expect to receive from the university. So that includes your tuition, per term that you're enrolled, and then a one-time academic record fee that's assessed the first term in which you're enrolled in the program. So the tuition that you're seeing under the direct cost section, that is on the basis of your enrollment over the course of 12 months, over the course of your entirety of your program in which you will be participating. Indirect costs. Indirect costs are what may it or might it cost if I was to be in Providence, or even if you weren't on campus in Providence, but based on your own personal expenses that you may have as a student, what is it going to cost me to participate in this program? And what could I expect my indirect costs that aren't billed directly from the university to be? These are not definitive numbers. These are estimates that our office works to offer students based on the location of Brown University and our surrounding area, dependent on what a student's enrollment plan is in terms of being in person, being hybrid, online, all these different variables that can affect expenses for living, for transportation, travel, etc. I really want to just again amplify that indirect costs and these numbers that you're seeing are not definitive numbers. They're an offering by the Office of Financial Aid to give students a general idea of what these expenses could be, but again, dependent on your choices for how you're going to move through this program. So in the indirect cost category, you can see that we've offered a general idea of what it would cost for housing and food needs throughout your 12 months that you would be enrolled. Same for books and materials, transportation, and then personal expenses. But again, as it pertains to what your direct billable charges from the university would be, the focus is those first two numbers, your tuition, of course, for your enrollment per term, and then a one-time academic records fee that's assessed the first term in which you're enrolled. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about loan borrowing. And this is really information once we have received your FAFSA, once we have determined your eligibility for federal student loan, and basically what to expect from there. So the unsubsidized federal direct student loan is the federal loan that is offered to graduate level students enrolled in a various academic program. The unsubsidized federal direct student loan will begin to accrue interest upon the loan being paid to your student billing account for the given semester that you are enrolled. For this current academic year that we are presently in, the interest rate, as you can see on the screen, is 7.94% on that loan. There is also a one-time origination fee that the Department of Education assesses, which is 1.057%. And that processing fee is taken off the principal amount that you're offered. So we've offered an example below just to sort of understand what that origination fee essentially does to your loan in terms of the payment for your account. So as a general example, if a student was to request their unsubsidized federal student loan for $10,000, an origination fee at the percent that it is set for this academic year would essentially take $105 of that principal that would go to the Department of Education. And then you, as the student, would receive the net difference of the loan, which in this example comes out to $9,894. But the idea, especially when you're determining your the costs and as well as how much in a loan you may be looking to borrow, the easiest way to do that is really just multiply the principal of the loan by that 1.057%, and that's going to offer you the difference, the net difference after the processing fee, which is a more accurate way to determine how much in a loan you really need to borrow to cover costs for a given term or for the program at large. As it pertains to the next academic year to come, the 2026-27 academic year, we unfortunately do not have the interest rate or the origination fee available to us yet. Annually, the Department of Education typically releases those in June of every year. So our expectation for those that are planning to enroll in, say, the summer of 2026, and thereafter, we would be able to offer you that information at least by June of 2026. So for students that are looking to borrow the unsubsidized federal direct student loan, the annual maximum or the loan limit that the Department of Education allows a graduate students to borrow for a given academic year is $20,500. Dependent on your enrollment plan will then depend on how this total annual amount is split. So as an example, let's say that you are enrolling in the fall and the spring semester of the 25-26 academic year that we're presently in. That would be an enrollment of 2 semesters during this current academic year. So that annual loan limit of the $20,500 would then be divided out evenly between the 2 semesters enrolled. In a situation where a student might be enrolling, say for the upcoming spring 2026 semester, you'll be enrolled for 1 term during this current academic year, meaning you would have the ability to utilize your annual limit for 1 semester enrolled. So your enrollment timeline is important and an important consideration to make as it pertains to loan borrowing, because it really offers the student the ability to sort of use the loan to their advantage based on when they plan on starting. So this is a conversation we have all the time with students in the Office of Financial Aid, and one we would be happy to have with you as well. Later in my presentation, I'll offer our contact information, of course. But again, I think most important is knowing that your annual amount, your annual limit is that $20,500. And dependent on your enrollment pattern and the period as it fits into an academic year, determines how that annual loan limit is divided out for you. This is an example or a basic formula that we like to offer students to sort of understand how they can maximize their loan borrowing. So in this example, we are using a student that is enrolled in 3 terms, the summer, the fall, and the spring, with their direct cost totaling $75,600. This student is receiving a merit-based scholarship upon their admission offer for $15,000 for these 3 terms. So to understand your loan eligibility as it pertains to your cost of attendance and direct charges, the idea is that we would take your total in your direct costs less the amount in scholarship that's been offered to the student equals your remaining loan eligibility that you are then able to borrow from through a means of different loan options, the unsubsidized federal student loan being the first line of defense, and then additional supplemental loan options, which students could then consider if desired. This next slide offers again a few more examples for students to understand how loan eligibility can be determined. So in example A, that was the previous slide that we just went over together. The student is enrolled in 3 terms with their direct costs being the $75,600. They received a $15,000 merit award, and after subtracting that merit award from their cost, they have $60,600 left in loan eligibility. As it now pertains to example B, that student did file FAFSA. They have made the decision to accept the full annual amount in their federal direct unsubsidized loan, that $20,500. And after deducting that unsubsidized loan that's been offered, they now have a remaining $40,100 left in available budget space to then consider borrowing a supplemental loan or a second loan to help with covering any remaining direct costs and or indirect costs that the student may have to participate in their program. So this slide talks a little bit more about supplemental loan options after the federal direct unsubsidized loan has been offered. So there are really 2 different options for graduate level students to consider beyond the federal direct unsubsidized loan, which is offered upon filing your FAFSA. The first is a Graduate Plus loan. Now, the Graduate Plus loan is a loan that is also offered through the Department of Education, so it is a federal loan, but this is not the same as the unsubsidized loan, which you would automatically be eligible for upon filing the FAFSA. The Graduate Plus loan does require a separate loan application, which a student can complete right at studentaid.gov, which is the exact same portal you would go to complete your FAFSA application. So convenient, everything is in the same space. But with the Graduate Plus loan, this tends to be a popular supplemental loan option that students will apply for after receiving their annual unsubsidized loan as a means to borrow up to their respective cost of attendance to help with covering remaining costs that may be directly charged, like your tuition, or indirect, like your costs for housing and food, or personal expenses while you're participating in your program. There is an interest rate associated with the Graduate Plus loan, much like the unsubsidized loan that we talked about. For this current academic year, the interest rate on the Graduate Plus loan is 8.94%. And there is also an origination fee, again, much like the unsubsidized loan, which we talked about earlier. For the Graduate Plus loan, that origination fee is 4.228% for this given year. So as a tip, for a student that is interested in applying for the Graduate Plus loan, but trying to understand exactly how much they need to borrow or will want to borrow, again, if you take what you assume would be your principal amount to borrow, multiply that by the origination fee, the difference you're going to get is the actual dollar amount that will physically disperse or be paid to your billing account here at Brown. So it's useful to have the origination fee percentage up front because it allows you to make, just a more informed decision as to how much you'll realistically need to borrow when you're submitting your application up front. The other option for supplemental loan borrowing is that of private education loans. So there are quite a few different private loan lenders that exist in the United States for purpose of supplemental loan borrowing. With that, it can tend to feel a bit overwhelming with trying to understand who's the best fit for you as the student. Brown University offers a really wonderful tool that's called the Fast Choice Loan Comparison Tool. This tool is available right on the Brown University Student Financial Services website. What it essentially offers is a full listing of all of the preferred private loan lenders that our student population works with most commonly. And dependent on a student's individual needs, it offers, I think, a comprehensive way of comparing loans side by side in determining which private lender best suits your needs. So whether that is looking at the variation of interest rates or repayment options, whether it includes credit requirements or not. All of that information is available upfront through this comparison tool, which makes the process of investigating supplemental loans, I think, a lot less overwhelming. So definitely worth checking out, especially if you are considering loan borrowing as a means to help finance your education. Loan eligibility is not a soft number, as we like to say in the Office of Financial Aid. And the reason for that is that loan eligibility can change throughout an academic year based on different situations that may arise. So what we really always ask of students is if there is a change to be expected, let us know so that way we can verify and communicate back to you that there is not or may be a change to your loan eligibility, which is of course very important. So we've offered just a few very common factors that may affect a student's loan eligibility throughout a term or a given academic year. And those different variables could be an enrollment change. So for example, moving from a full-time enrollment status to say quarter time. We would want to be aware of that information in our office because enrollment status does impact loan eligibility. A student that may be taking a leave of absence or needing to withdraw from a given semester, that also may impact their loan eligibility that's already been offered to them. So again, important to communicate that with our office as soon as you're aware, or even if you're making that consideration with your program, so we can offer you that information up front. Tuition changes, and then also scholarship changes. So beyond the resource of loan borrowing, students do also have the ability to apply for and use outside scholarship or external scholarship opportunities to help finance your costs. As it pertains to external scholarships, while there is not a limit per se in how much you could apply towards your costs, it can impact your loan eligibility because you do have a set budget or cost of attendance that we have to remain at or under. So again, if you are considering any of these more popular items that could impact loan eligibility, we advise just reaching out, having a conversation, so that way we can offer you information regarding potential impacts as soon as possible. Once a student has been offered a loan and then accepted that loan, the next most important step, of course, is the disbursement or the payment of that loan towards your billing account. So at Brown University, loan funds generally disperse a few days prior to the start of the semester beginning. As it then pertains to disbursement, if a student has borrowed more in loan for a given term than what their actual billable direct charges are, so in this case, your tuition charge, you may then be eligible to request a refund for that excess loan that you borrowed for that given semester. Refunds of excess loans begin processing every semester on the first day of classes for that given semester. So this is really to be able to confirm that a student is actually enrolled for that semester prior to refunds being processed back to the student. But this information is available through the Student Financial Services website. Again, our office is happy to communicate and go through the steps for loan disbursement and refunds if applicable. But it is important for students to know that if they are borrowing loan in excess beyond their direct charges, possibly looking to use that excess loan for those indirect costs that you may incur, refunds will not begin to process until the start of that given academic term that you're enrolled. With that, for students that may be using that refund to go towards indirect costs such as, say, housing or food, because your refund is not going to process until the start of that given semester you're enrolled, it is very important to be considering your cost, your indirect expenses that you may have prior to being eligible to get that refund back and budgeting accordingly, knowing that there is going to be a lapse before you actually have access to that refund money itself. So these last couple of slides that have involved discussing loan disbursements and refunds, though very knowledgeable, these different processes actually happen through a partner office of ours, which is the Student Financial Services Office. I am part of the Office of Financial Aid, which again works with budgeting, FAFSA processing, and loan posting. So we like to just offer this information up front to students because it sometimes can be a bit confusing who you should be speaking to or which website you should be on. But we are separate offices. So in general, Office of Financial Aid, which I'm representing today, we work with your FAFSA, and we also work to calculate and offer your federal loan eligibility. The Financial Services Office, and their email address is right below. They work with processing and dispersing your loan once it's been offered, managing your billing statements, and then also processing refunds. This slide is really informational. This is from the Student Financial Services website. So you can access this at any time by even just typing Student Financial Services Brown into your URL. But this offers students a more concise breakdown of all of the different steps that may be involved with the process of borrowing a loan. So general considerations to make, what the process actually entails, what are my federal loan options versus my private loan options. And then there are also some tools for loan repayment and being able to use an estimator to make informed decisions about your borrowing upfront. I'm going to talk now just a little bit about other financing opportunities that are not connected to that of loan borrowing. So the Brown University Student Financial Services Office does offer an installment payment plan for students that are looking to spread out their costs for a longer period of time, but not necessarily solely with the use of loan borrowing. Before describing the installment payment plan, I do want to preface a student that enrolls in no way is only or I should say, in no way is subject to only choose from one type of financing option here. Students are welcome to borrow loan and also participate in the installment payment plan if that is their choice. So again, know that if you are considering loan borrowing, in no way does that mean that is the only way you can finance your degree. It does not prohibit you from also using something like the installment payment plan if you're looking to sort of do a combination of financing options. In that same respect, you are not required to use something like the monthly payment plan option if you are ultimately looking to finance your degree using solely loans. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of options for payment and really what fits you as the student. So with that being said, the installment payment plan is offered on a per term basis by the Student Financial Services Office. The student will have access to their payment portal. And then from there, you would sign up to use the monthly payment plan option for that given term you're interested. There is a $75 one-time enrollment fee that is required to be paid at the time that you register for the plan. This plan is offered to students for all terms in which enrollment is available, summer, fall, or spring. You'll see that based on the enrollment time, how many number of payments you're able to stretch a given balance by will vary. But in general, for students that are enrolled in a summer term, they will have the option between a 2-month or a 3-month payment plan. And for students enrolled in the fall or the spring semester, will have an option to sign up for a 3-month or a 4-month payment plan. There is no interest for using the installment payment plan. This is really just a means of taking your balance for a given term and dividing it out by 2, 3, or 4 months as a means to spread out your payments for a longer period of time. Lastly, I would like to mention for those that may be interested or not aware regarding veteran affair benefits for the Masters in Healthcare Leadership program that are available to be applied. So at Brown University and in cooperation with the Healthcare Leadership Program, we do proudly post 9/11, or excuse me, offer post 9/11 GI Bill and Yellow Ribbon GI Education Enhancement Program benefits. For a student that would be eligible to utilize post 9/11 GI or the Yellow Ribbon GI benefit, by applying it towards your healthcare leadership program, this can provide tuition support up to $29,920.95 per fiscal year as it pertains to the VA themselves. So when we're considering the cost of the program overall, what the VA and these education programs may offer is a considerable coverage in support. I think really making the ability to move through your program just so worth it, especially because you've earned these education benefits to apply. Students who receive the 9/11 GI Bill benefit are almost always eligible for the Yellow Ribbon program as well. So students who request and are eligible for this program are determined on a first come, first served basis. So really what we, would like to just explain is if you know you are eligible for this benefit, if you are interested in finding out if you may be eligible for this benefit, if you're not sure, to really start the process, we would first suggest reaching out to your VA administrator to determine and confirm that you have a certificate of eligibility available to then supply to Brown University for our office to then determine what your actual coverage would look like based on what has been determined by the VA themselves. So, assuming that a student has confirmed that they do have a certificate of eligibility with the ability to use GI or Yellow Ribbon benefit, the student would simply just print their certificate of eligibility off their VA portal. It should be a COE that has been dated within at least the last 6 months. And then the student would simply submit that to professional@brown.edu as indicated on the screen. And that's what starts the verifying of your benefit. And then from there, the student would work with our certifying official to understand what their coverage will offer them. Lastly, I just want to emphasize once again that we're around and we're happy to be here as a resource to help you with questions and concerns. So in the Office of Financial Aid, we offer counseling appointments, phone appointments, in-person walk-ins. We can pre-schedule Zoom. So really, To whatever extent of communication you may be interested in and looking for, we are happy to oblige. The email address that's on this screen is specific to our graduate financial aid office. So please do not be shy. Reach out with any questions or concerns that you may have. We are happy to move through those with you. And if you would prefer setting up an actual appointment, whether it be remote or a phone appointment, please just offer your availability, and I would be more than happy to get us on the calendar in the coming days to weeks. That is not a problem. But we do our best to be very flexible. So again, any concerns at all, please reach out. We are here for you. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you so much. We do have a couple minutes left and a couple of questions. So, Francesca, would you have any other resources for finding external scholarships? Any pro tips there?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the graduate financial aid homepage, we have at the top of our header, you'll see that there is an option for external grants, scholarships, and fellowship opportunities. Once a student clicks on that tab within our homepage, it does offer a listing of different external resources whom have been vetted. So we know these are legitimate resources for the student to then consider. In most cases, you will move through an application process with that external scholarship organization. But again, it can be a bit time consuming. I always suggest to students that you start on our website because you at least have peace of mind knowing that the external resources listed are legitimate options. Beyond that, you can, of course, independently dive into external resources on your own. Just be very cognizant of the websites or the organizations that you're looking at and you're researching, and most important, knowing that these are legitimate options that you're applying to.
Thank you. Our next question, since the Grad Plus loan is no longer going to be available starting July of 2026, are there any additional scholarship opportunities or opportunities to take out loans that will be offered?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I will say to that effect, as part of the recent Big Beautiful Bill Act that moved through Congress, it has not officially been voted into law. So it is a bit of a moving target in terms of available information that we have as well. But the expectation is that as of July 1st, 2026, the Graduate Plus loan will no longer be available for new students. So what that means is that if a student is not already actively enrolled in a given graduate program, they will no longer have access to apply for the Graduate Plus loan. If a student has already previously borrowed for the program they're presently enrolled in, then that student would be grandfathered in. So the potential changes that are coming for the Graduate Plus loan are very cognizant based on what a student's enrollment plan is as it pertains to academic years. With that being said, and knowing that the Graduate Plus loan application will likely not be available for the foreseeable future once July 1st hits, that really means private loans as a means for supplemental borrowing. There is no expectation that the federal direct unsubsidized loan that you're eligible for by applying with FAFSA is going away. It's the Grad Plus loan as a supplemental option. So knowing that, it means looking into private lenders as an option to meet those supplemental needs for direct and indirect costs. I really, I can't say enough. There are so many private lenders out there. They are very competitive as it pertains to that of the Graduate Plus loan and its current interest rate. So even knowing that the Graduate Plus loan is likely to be going away as of summer, that does not close the door on other opportunities for supplemental loan borrowing. What it means is having to start planning a little bit sooner and doing a little bit more research sooner to find the right private lender that meets your needs. In terms of scholarship, I would not expect that to have any impact because the basis of the loss of the Graduate Plus loan does not impact how a merit-based scholarship is determined and offered. So really what it comes down to is I may not have the opportunity now to apply for the Graduate Plus loan. I still have private loan options. Let's start the research sooner so I'm working with a lender that I feel comfortable with.
Great, thank you so much. And that is all of our time for today. I've got people waiting for meeting rooms. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to email us. You can email Sandy or you can email professional@brown.edu, and we are more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today, and thank you, Francesca, for sharing your wealth of knowledge. We really appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.